Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It really is one of the most important parts of your wedding, that big special day. And it's something that a lot of couples overlook. And it's the wedding officiant, the person that starts your life together. Yes, the party's great. The venue's fantastic. Taking the pictures, the video, and all of that. But it starts with the ceremony. And you should really consider somebody who is serious about it and does a great job, has lots of ideas. And she is Colleen, Colleen Company, amazing wedding officiant. I don't know any better. And I have to be honest with you, Colleen, really,
Oh,
you have it. Like that's your purpose to start the lives of people. Welcome back, by the way. How you doing?
good. Thank you, Steve. I love what I do. It makes it easy to do a good job. And I am following my passion. I know that's a luxury. A lot of people can't follow their passion. So I really appreciate that you see that it's something I really live for, and I try my best to do a good job for the people I marry. So
Yeah, obviously you're detail oriented and you come up with these ideas in the times that we've talked before that anything is possible. And of course, you don't want to like have a crazy ceremony unless that's your
right.
thing, but most people don't. But you're there to, let's say somebody's like, I got these ideas, reel them a little bit back in to where it's traditional but fun. But at the same time, if somebody's here doing the standard, same old, I'm going to say boring ceremony, there's a lot you can do where you can kind of go, open it up a little bit and have a little bit more fun with it, make it more personal, relatable, rememberable. The memories will be there. Unity ceremonies, lots of
Sure.
trends. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, unity ceremonies have gone back for years. And they, for many, like certain churches did certain kinds, certain cultures do certain kinds. And they're basically ceremonies which show that the two of you are forever joined as one. And after that ceremony today, it will be impossible to completely separate yourself from that person. And that's very true about any wedding, good or bad. If people have left each other later in life, they still have this tie to that person. They're a part of their memories. They're a part of who they become. So I think they're very cool. And there's classic ceremonies, which like are the candle lighting ones, or the hand fasting is a big one that's making a comeback. And then there's more contemporary ceremonies like planting a tree together or a plant of some sort. There's these ones where they create a piece of artwork together, and there's anniversary boxes or capsules. There's a love knot, tying the knot, and then canvases they paint. There's so many. It's endless. Plus, I enjoy kind of creating one that's unique to the couple, as we mentioned in the other show, where at the end of their ceremony, they rang their bell for their personal best, the people that were marathon runners. So I think that it's fun to include, again, it really depends on the couple, but it's fun to include a ceremony that somehow is symbolic to the couple and what their interests are or what their relationship is.
You mentioned hand fasting before, and I've heard the term, I think maybe from Outlander. I'm
Yeah,
not really sure. Tell me about that.
sure. Hand fasting is like, it goes back to the Celtic times, and you saw it on Outlander. And I think there's a lot of Scottish people that do it with their kilts, their tartans, and not their kilts, obviously, but their plaid that represents their family. I like the hand fasting. I've seen a lot of people do that recently.
What
Especially
exactly is it? That's what I'm saying. What
okay.
is it?
So what they do is they have several strips of ribbon, or it could be fabric, or it could be lace, and they hold their hands together, and the officiant or a selected family member will lay these ribbons over their hands, and then it's tied in a knot to symbolize that you're actually tying the knot.
Wow.
The old tradition was done a year before they actually married. So what they did is they tied the knot, and you were married for a year, and then at the end of the year you could decide if you were going to stay together or not. That's way back in the old days they did that. And if you decide,
what a great idea.
I know, it's like, let's
Like
try this out,
seriously,
right?
the more I think about it,
Yeah.
the more I think that couples should have therapy before you even think about getting married, or if it's just a quick thought. But now what you're talking about,
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
That
a
what other
trial
cultures
run.
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
trial run, right?
Yep, it's great. And I did a lot of those actually during the pandemic. People were having to postpone their weddings, but for one reason or another,
Okay.
they needed to get married so that they could buy their home. There were certain things that they were looking forward to doing together. And so they did an elopement and they hand fasted. And then a year later, I met with them for their formal ceremony in front of their guests. So hand
Let me
fasting
ask
is
you,
making a big
even before we
comeback.
continue this. Oh,
Uh-huh.
so questions here. The hand fasting seems to be just a quick ceremony. It's just a ceremony, but not the full celebration.
Yep.
So, I equate that to loosely here going to the justice of the peace and just, banging out the vows, signing off. It's legal though if you
Uh,
hand fast a ceremony, correct?
yeah. Uh-huh. As long as
Okay,
I'm doing it, like if you have an authorized person, each state has different criteria for who's authorized to marry, but
sure.
as long as someone's authorized to marry you, it's completely legal.
Okay. And then after that hand fasting ceremony takes place, is it often that it's now done again with you? Do they call you up
Mhm.
again? Hey, we're okay. The venue's booked. We're going to do it. We're all set. Colleen, meet us on the state.
Yep, that's what has happened quite a bit
Wow.
over the last couple years. I've
Hmm.
had couples that, like I said, for one reason or another, and in this case, it was because they couldn't gather at a venue, they couldn't have more than a certain number of people, and they postponed their big celebration and then did
Wow.
hand fasting ahead of time. So the wedding in this case was legal when they hand fasted. They didn't do a
Sure.
trial run,
Right.
but they did a hand fasting, and then at the ceremony, we either sometimes people did it again, and then other times they just use those cords that they did, because when you tie the knot, it creates an infinity knot, so it's kind of pretty. And they could put that in a shadow box and then have it at their guest sign in, or they could, they can use it somehow as a decor in their home. So many people
Wow.
did it again then later. And the cool thing about it too is that you could select different colors of cord to represent the pillars of your relationship, longevity, prosperity, luck, you know, um, some people even wanted to have families, so they did the one so that they could have a big family. And you could even have, as at the larger ones, you could have different people put the knots on too. I had actually one where they did hand fasting and they wanted a pregnant woman to put the one on for having, fruitfulness. So they selected different guests that were that kind of represented that pillar that they were looking for, including in their relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would they who typically is present during the hand fasting ceremony? Is it just like close family, mother, father, that kind of thing?
Well, it's whatever. So the
Okay.
hand fasting one I've done, the smaller ones, it might just be mother, father, or parents, or sisters or something like that, whoever they would consider a witness. But
Okay.
in the larger ceremonies, there's a lot of people, and so they have their special people that may not be part of the wedding party. So that's where one time I did it, and his father was a surgeon, and he was not the one that walked her down the aisle, so they had this extra role for the father of the groom, and he was a surgeon, so we had him tie the knot because he probably does better knots than most people. He wouldn't be such a successful surgeon, and he did a
Wow.
beautiful job. It was very sweet. And then he was, after the knots were, so after you tie the knot, then the couple will pull the cord and they'll slip their hands out and they'll pull the cord, which creates the unity knot. and then they handed it to dad, and dad hung on to it and then took care of it for their honeymoon, and then presented to them later. They had a dinner with him. So there's so many
Hmm.
fun things you can do with it, and it really depends on who you would like to involve, what statement you want to make, what type of design you wish to create with your knot, so that, you know, are you planning to put it somewhere prominent in your home, or are you looking at, you know, just keeping it tucked away as a special memory for both of you? So you can really customize that ceremony in so many different ways. Again, you know, I mentioned that in old times, the Celtic tradition, couples would do that for a year. It was a trial run of their marriage. And then after the year was up, they had the opportunity to decide if they would stay together or move on separately. And in that time, that was legal. So, so some couples hang on to that knot, and after a year together, they do something with it, you know, to mark that they are still on the right track for their wedding. So their first anniversary, they may do something special with the knot as well.
Have you ever had a situation where a couple, for whatever the reason is, got married on the down low? Maybe you married them, and
Uh-huh.
now let's, you know, move forward a year or whatever and do a full
Yes.
ceremony.
Yep.
Um, and how do you really, I guess it's a faux ceremony. It's not, you know,
Right.
a real one, but have you done that?
Mhm. I've done it quite a few times. It's, and sometimes their parents don't know they've gotten married. Sometimes the parents do know, but everybody else, because they don't want to have another ceremony later, and people were like, well, they just got married, why are we doing this? You know, so they
Right.
want their guests to have that excitement that it's initial and new. In the one case, it was somebody I knew fairly well. And so I had to be keep it all on the down low. And I wasn't, you know, able to tell even our common friends. And then a year later, they had a large ceremony. And by then, a few people had found out, but they kept it quiet as well. And when they had that larger ceremony, she'd already become pregnant. They were very excited about starting a family, and there was some concerns that, you know, would we be able to get this, you know, happening? I don't know whether they had to do some treatments to be able to conceive. So I think by getting married, they had the opportunity to share benefits and work on that plan.
Hmm.
It was a lot of fun, and she had a baby shortly after, and you know, now I'm seeing
Wonderful.
them on Facebook with their happy family. So,
Yeah,
um,
that has to be so gratifying for you and just feel so good knowing that you put people together and uh, you see them, their lives move forward.
yes, it's beautiful. It's really like I almost feel like a grandparent when I see these couples have their first child, and I
Wow.
feel like or that aunt, and you know, it's nice that they've stayed in touch so I can see that happen. And I know I remark on it on Facebook when I see things like that happen, or when they celebrate their first anniversary, I'll make a remark, and it is very gratifying. It's really beautiful to see their love grow and how happy they still are. So, and my couples have moved, you know, some of them lived in my own hometown, and now they're many, many miles away. And thankfully, social media allows me to stay in touch and see what their
Sure.
lives have done. So, and one of them actually, I'm getting married next month, and one of them said,
Oh, wow.
you know, this would be full circle if you let us marry you. So it was kind of fun. Now we're not doing that, but it's really nice that people, you know, what they want to, that they know I'm part of their family now, and they want to be part of that. So,
So who's going to
oh,
marry you?
we're going to do it ourselves. In Pennsylvania, we have this law that goes back to the Quakers, because in Quakers, they don't have a clergy member. Everybody is an equal in so it goes back to William Penn. And so the Quaker faith allows you to do a self-uniting. So we're going to do a self-uniting ceremony. I had a hard time selecting from all the people I know and love who would be my officiant. So, and
Wow.
because I have experience doing it, I have a real good idea of what I want. So we're going to do a self-uniting ceremony.
I think I shared with you that I can marry people. It was a
Hmm.
radio stunt way back in the day.
Yes.
Um, and I can, that's how I appreciate what you do, because there's so much, I've married a few people, again, when people heard that am legally ordained to do it,
Right.
they would call upon me. So I probably in my life probably married 10 couples or something like that.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate what you do, because it's a lot of responsibility. Everything rides on the ceremony. You're guiding them. It's like,
Hmm.
when you talk about the venue, you have the planner who's walking you through, we're going to do this and that. It's the same thing that you do in a different situation, different scale in terms of the ceremony. And I always like to joke that out of all the people I married, my divorce track record was actually pretty low.
Yeah.
Coincidence, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing too. I have the choice on who I marry too. And if I do meet with a couple and they don't seem to be a good fit for me, you get that instinctive feeling about, are
Yeah,
we going to be a good connection, and I don't typically like to turn people down, but there are times where I can tell that it's not a very good connection. Like,
sure.
and it's odd because I come from the type of or my ordination allows me to be more flexible with religion, with in terms of religion. I am a universal type clergy member, so I accept all faiths and I accept all walks of life.
Sure.
But what I really have a hard time accepting is when I feel that there is some disconnect in their relationship, when it's not
Yes.
a genuine connection. And if that's the case, I really have a hard time accepting them as a client.
Yeah. Like,
So
right, so
yeah,
for example, right out of the gate, if they come to you and they're talking about the ceremony and now they're already fighting or they're
right.
disagreeing, and there's just you're feeling, I believe everything is energy. You're feeling just
Yes,
bad energy, negative vibes there. And I get it. You want to help everybody, but at the same time, you don't want that on your watch where
right.
this is probably not going to go well down the road.
Yes, yeah. And if I feel that someone's voice isn't being heard in the connection, that's a real sign for me, because as a
Mm,
universalist, I'm supposed to accept all faiths. And if somebody has no voice in the ceremony, I don't feel that that's really me accepting that, because you can tell that they have an opinion, but they're not presenting it. So that concerns me when I see that dynamic too.
that's a real uncomfortable situation to be in, Colleen. So let's say you have a couple before you,
Uh-huh.
and typically the guys lean back and they, yeah, whatever you want to do. Um, and he steps up at one point and says, "No, I really think we should do this." And she says, "Nah, no, don't worry about that. We got that." But he really wants one maybe little piece of it to be special to
Right.
him. That's a challenge for you
It
for sure.
It is a challenge, but it's not in so many ways. I kind of am lucky that I do have that one meeting at least before the ceremony. It's about 2 months before the ceremony. And
Mm,
so we do a high level planning meeting. And during that meeting, if he does that, and I always leave it open for them to reach out afterwards so we can make adjustments. And if I hear him saying something like that, I'm like, that's really exciting. We could try to figure out a way to get that in. And so even if she says, I'm not sure about that, I might have a separate conversation with her and say, hey, let's find a way to give him this moment.
mm.
It's nice because it's not as hard as you would think at that point, because by then I've gotten to know them. And when I finally hear him speaking up, I say, this is exciting. He really is into this. He wants to take part in this. Let's find a way to give him that. And I've never really had anyone say no.
Mm.
It's once they realize that he is actually participating and he wants something, they recognize that it's important to allow that. So it's been fun. And that's the exciting thing. It does start out with just one person usually.
Mm.
Many times two people interview me, but then it's passed off to someone to manage that relationship. And then by the time we have that meeting, I love that meeting because I get both of them on the same page with what's actually going to happen. And often maybe the girl does take the lead and then the guy comes in and he's like, I didn't even know we had to make these decisions. They kind of thought they were just going to show up and say, I do, and it was fine. And so then you start seeing this person go from not having any input at all to having quite a bit of input by the end of that meeting. And I can see that they're getting excited about it together. And now they're very happy and looking forward to it more than the one guy taking a step back and saying, you do what you want to do. It's fun to watch that genesis, of them
Sure.
finding it. And it's also fun to see that he doesn't think he has an option to participate. He just kind of feels like he shows up, or she too. And then when they see they have so many opportunities to make it their own, it's fun to watch the excitement and the creativity emerge, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess it goes back to traditionally, the woman it's her thing, that special day, fairy tale, things like that. So a lot of times the guy does lean back, but it's nice to see when, he can be integrated in and have
Yeah.
opinions as he should. How
Yeah.
about, religious ceremonies? What is the most either challenging or unusual request related to religion that you had to fulfill?
Let's see. I really haven't had anything that I would say is overly challenging. I did have one situation where she was from a very religious family and he was from an absolutely not religious family, and she definitely wanted religion in the ceremony. And so I really tried to work with her, and I was scared because I don't like to do something overly religious if it's not something the entire group will feel comfortable with. And so I looked for biblical, references that are kind of still buried in current culture, so that it was something that people are still comfortable with, but they've never, they don't even recognize it as being a biblical reference, so, the for everything there's a season. That is it. Art Garfunkel, and that song. That's
The birds, turn, turn, turn.
Yes.
Yes.
So that song is a song that people sang for years, and parents especially know that, and that comes from the Bible. So we try to find things that are comfortable for everyone to use in a ceremony. In fact, I had an Islamic and Christian ceremony. And for the Islamic ceremony, or for their belief, there are certain things that are common to the Christians. And so I pulled those commonalities, and those are the things I focused on. So yeah, it's been fun to do that because I learn when I'm doing that. I research and I look for tell me more about this, and I do a lot of research on it. And I try to find things that speak to me as maybe I'm not from that religion, but it's very common to the religion I am. And it's been a very growing experience for me to do that. And what is also nice is that when I do that, I see that both couples look at me with new eyes, because I don't think they actually saw that was possible. And what I present to them is something that both of them feel so happy with, and they know their families would be happy with. And so I can see in their eyes that they're really impressed that we were able to do something that brought them all together.
That's why you're so great at what you do.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is
those are the
because
moments I live for too. Those are the exciting things for me. The money is not always important. It's the fact that I'm allowing people from diverse backgrounds to recognize their commonalities and support each other and actually choose to marry, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, if you look on the celebration, the venue side, where somebody says, "Oh, you could have this type of cake or you could have that type of cake." There's so many choices there.
Yes.
I believe many don't see the ceremony the same way. They think
Right.
it's kind of going to be, your typical ceremony, maybe a little bit of difference here, maybe we'll make it a little personal here, but no, there's so much you can do. By the way, when you mentioned Turn, Turn, Turn by the Birds having a religious biblical connection. Another song that a lot of people don't realize, and it came out probably about 7 years after that song did, like right around or mid 70s ish. Cat Stevens and Morning Has Broken.
Yes.
Big hit song, top 5 song back in the day. And it's religious.
Yep.
They sing it in church.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's quite a few things like that you know, we are looking at it in a different point of view nowadays, but it stems from some type of religious background. So,
well, it's helpful to you because then if one half of the ceremony, one half of the couple isn't into something very religious, you can find those ways to make everybody happy. How do we find you? What's your website?
It's Officiant Services by Colleen and Company, and you can just put that in any search engine and you'll find me. And I'm also on the Knot and Wedding Wire, which are platforms in order to plan your ceremony. I get quite a few people from that. My number is 717-318-4383. And you can call me at any time. And again, even if I'm not your officiant, I have a team of people that can help consult and help you develop a ceremony. And you can have somebody else officiate it if you wish. So we do both in person, and we help create it for you or help you find ways to incorporate something special into your ceremony.
Fantastic. I didn't know you were getting married next month. So
yes,
wow.
Actually not next month. It's this month. It's funny.
Oh my gosh.
The 29th of April.
Oh, well, congrats in advance for that.
Thank you.
I have credentials. I can marry you if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll zoom you in.
There you go. Love your creativity, love your passion, and look forward next time we get a chance to talk.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Yep. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.